got Marvel Ironheart episode 1 to 3. Check it out.
I'm Ezekiel. Stane.
Obadiah Stane.
Did y'all like it or not?
Trying to kill Tony Stark.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Marvel Ironheart episode 1, episode 2, and episode 3 video.
I thought it would be
They're binge
better.
dropping the episodes in 2 different weeks, so like the rest of all the episodes, there's 6 total, will drop next week. If you're brand new
That's
to the
kind of
channel,
wild
be
to
sure
do
to
for a
subscribe to get
series.
everything. It is no surprise that a lot of the show hangs its hat on Iron Man and Robert Downey Jr., but it's also surprisingly trying to set up a lot of the way that Doctor Doom is going to work, combining with magic and technology, as I'll talk about
That shit
during the
gonna be
video.
lit.
There is a long, windy history to this show actually hitting screens. They actually filmed it a number of years ago, and it's been sitting on a shelf for a long time just because there's been such a backlog. They pulled way back on Disney Plus with how much Marvel stuff they actually release year to year. This was actually made during a time at Marvel when they were basically greenlighting all kinds of stuff automatically, and they would just say, why don't we do a show for
say yes to
X and X
everything, bro.
character? So if you ever wondered why so many different people got shows that you would never expect to actually get shows, it was when they were under this period at Marvel where Disney literally
just
had them release
wildin'.
as much stuff as they possibly could between the movies and the shows every single year. But the actual title
Less
of
is
episode
more,
1
bro.
was Take Me Home, which is a reference to her trying to get back to MIT after Black Panther Wakanda Forever. The series is meant to take place about 6 months to a year after the events of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And then eventually her getting kicked out of school and having to literally go back home again to Chicago, where the majority of the series takes place. The cold open is a montage of home movies in the form of her memories of her best friend Natalie Washington.
pretty cool
from the
how they
comics, who
filmed
died
some of this
tragically
stuff,
when
though.
she was much younger. On the show, it seems like she was a little bit older when Natalie died. Together, they make a lot of references to the events of the first Avengers movie, just making it sound like she was alive after the events of that first movie. But her whole relationship with Natalie is also meant to set up her new armor suit AI being based on Natalie, using the BARF technology created by Iron Man during Captain America's Civil War. There are also a lot of references to Captain America's Civil War. She mentions she plans on being bigger than Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Apple, and
Hey, go for
Microsoft
it.
exist in the MCU.
Shit.
Hank Pym for Pym Tech in the MCU. She mentions Tony Stark for Stark Industries. Natalie says she wants to be with Thor and his hammer. Remember, it takes place after the events of the first Avengers movie, so like the Earth knows all about Thor at this point. When she starts talking about a lot
Oh, I
of
thought it
happiness,
was, like,
she's not
way
making
back
Happy
then.
Hogan
Ain't
references
no way.
either, but there are many. There are like 15 billion references to Tony Stark and Iron Man
The pencil was
specifically
kind
during
of
this
crazy.
first
Ain't gonna
episode.
lie.
For obvious reasons, her whole character was
I wonder
created
how people
to
feel
be
about
Iron Man's
that.
understudy. She debuted in the Iron Man comics. They do a similar version of the Marvel television logo that we've seen on Daredevil Born Again that's made it sound like an old school CRT TV turning on, the tubes turning on. Then it jumps forward to her being back at MIT after the events of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Her backpack has Iron Man colors. She wears a lot of red for her Ironheart colors. This looks like a drone that someone is
You need to
creating in a
stay in
lab.
her
This green
lane,
substance might be based
then
on the
people
Green
gonna be
Goblin's
hating
leftover
if
tech
she's
from
like,
Spider-Man No Way Home. The green
has to
from
be
that was
Iron
actually
Man.
the Goblin serum. She references the events
actually
of Black
Iron
Panther
Man,
Wakanda
but
Forever literally, and they play footage of her
you
from the
know.
movie working with Shuri to build her vibranium armor suit. She mentions the vibranium mound, calling it a vibranium mountain. They set up the idea that she needs cash to fund the tech that she wants to build her armor suits, build her new AI that she's trying to make. That's the whole idea. All the money is really for the griot AI that she's trying to create. She calls it a Wakandan AI.
King T'Challa's heart rate has fallen to 31 beats per minute.
Princess, you should go be by his side.
Here's the first sign of trouble. When she says Tony Stark wouldn't be Tony Stark if he wasn't a billionaire, that is absolutely false, because we all know from the first Iron Man movie, Tony Stark built his first Iron Man suit Mark I in a cave with a box of scraps.
Yeah, that's
Very
true.
notable Obadiah Stane reference, because
You didn't
we
watch
get
the
a whole
movies,
bunch of them later
or
in the
someone didn't.
episodes because
Nah,
of
I'm just kidding.
Ezekiel Stane. Don't worry, we will get to that too. It looks like she's basically just getting her money by doing homework for other rich kids in the area schools. Remember, she's at MIT. Spider-Man spent all of Spider-Man No Way Home trying to get into MIT. That was one of the whole reasons why he had Doctor Strange try to perform the first spell and then eventually had to do the second spell.
Shit,
The
let
book
them
she's
have an
holding in the library
interaction.
here also looks like Ant-Man's book. The griot algorithm, when they start referencing it, is based on a West African historian, a storyteller, praise singer, poet, musician. Griots are also masters of communicating stories in history orally. We actually saw Shuri interacting with the Wakandan AI during the events of the movie, but the idea is that Riri Williams is trying to create
I
an
thought it
even
was a
better
real person.
version using
Uh-huh.
Iron Man's barf
Oh
technology.
no, she did
Notice
have
in
an
the board
AI
she's written
actually,
the words barf. The whole idea is the barf
not the
helps
actual
visualize
person.
your literal memories. So the reason why she acts so human-like, unlike say Jarvis or Friday, is because she's literally based on the brain scans from Riri
That's
Williams,
wild,
based on
bro.
her own memories of Natalie.
I'll probably be able to
Basically a
do that
more
in real
complete,
life
more human-like
eventually.
artificial intelligence. They kind of got into this whole concept with the whole Vision character in general. Like that's kind of Vision's vibe, is that he's slowly learning what it means to be human, evolving in a human-like way. She claims, though, she's creating the tech to help people, the medical industry, safety workers, technicians, so that versions of this
Until
technology, like what
someone
you
gets
see
a hold of
Natalie
it.
doing throughout the episodes, can also help just regular service workers around the world. All the risks she mentions are just resorting to stealing tech from around MIT, pinching stuff, cheating for other kids to get money to pay for it all, which does wind up biting her in the ass in a big way. Jim
Yeah,
Rash
she
comes
got
back as the MIT
fired or
administrator
kicked out.
from Captain America Civil War, same basic character. They also reveal the funding that she's on at MIT. The reason why she's getting all this money is because she's taking advantage of Tony Stark's fellowship he created with all of his money during Captain America Civil War, that special program. But basically, this whole first part of the episode is her hyping herself up as God's gift to the world, and it's all about the hubris before the fall. Like, she gets the rug pull pretty quickly. Basically, the rest of the episode
She
is a whole
thought she
bunch
was
of characters just
untouchable.
clowning on her all over the place. They kick her out of school, then forcing her to slink back to her family home in Chicago, but she tries to take her Iron Man Mark III armor with her, or her Ironheart Mark III, that she used
Did I like
MIT
the
facilities to
suit
create,
up or
but they
nah?
claim the reason why she's able to take it is because she actually used her own separate funding outside of MIT. Part of the idea is that when you go to a university, at least in America, I think it's this way in most places around the world too, anything you create or you come up with at college or at a university
I'm
using
surprised they
their
don't try to
funding or
steal
their
it.
facilities, they own the copyright to.
But yeah,
So
see,
technically, the suit MIT would own her Ironheart suit. There's a real big deep cut Easter egg here, too. Some of you probably recognize her current suit AI is called Trevor, and he's based on the Microsoft Clippy avatar, which is an absolute blast from the
forever.
past. Everybody who
Damn,
remembers
I
Microsoft's
don't remember
Clippy and
that.
interacted with it on an actual computer, let me know in the comments. The whole idea
Damn,
being that it operates on the school's
that's
IT
old as
system,
hell.
and typically when you're kicked out of school, they get rid of your student ID so she wouldn't be able to access it all. But they basically just hold that off till she gets back to Chicago. That's when her student ID actually gets deleted and it cuts her out of the
That was
system,
wild, bro.
causing her to actually crash in the suit.
That was pretty cool
Her
though.
actual student ID,
Ironheart.
30216RW, feels like a reference to her first appearance in the Iron Man comics. Back in Chicago, we see the Hood's crew on a job for the first time. Their van, Friendly Neighborhood Service, feels like a Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man reference. You notice Eric Andre is playing the Rampage character
Rampage.
from the Champions comics, super deep cut. They use this slip up to show you some of their fighting skills and to set up the idea of why they need Riri Williams on their crew. When we see Anthony Ramos's Hood character for the first time, you notice he is wearing his red hood from the comics, the actual
I don't
cloak.
know how I
The
feel
Hood's
about
real
that,
name
bro.
is Parker Robbins. He's primarily thought of as a low-level magician and a thief who also uses guns. So it's like, what if magic plus guns? He
Hmm.
fires Rampage for his incompetence, and the replacement is meant to be Riri Williams, who they recruit eventually, baiting her with the idea that she can use all the money that they're going to earn from jobs to fund her
She
technology.
saw that.
She
She was like,
crashes into the ground,
"Shit,
creating
couple
that
jobs won't hurt."
destruction-themed title of the show. The crash is also meant to be a callback to Iron Man crashing in the sand in his Mark I suit at the beginning of the movie. There's a random dude on the streets yelling about
Worse
the
than
end times coming, saying
Thanos.
that Thanos was just the beginning. This is
Doomsday.
probably meant to be a setup for Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom in Avengers Doomsday Secret Wars, and of course, the Hood's master, which might be Dormammu or even Mephisto. There was actually a schedule of episodes, and on episode 5, there's an M that's highlighted in red. So people are like, does the M stand for Mephisto, or
I
does it
think
stand for
low-key it
Dormammu? Because
was
Dormammu's
Mephisto.
energy is red, and there's a lot of red magical energy in the
I don't think
episodes.
it'll be
So we will
Dormammu,
see which direction
but
they went. Like,
shit.
did they actually go full meme and they're going to pay off Mephisto finally? Do not be surprised, though,
They
if they switched
should.
it behind the scenes and it winds up being someone like Dormammu. That letter M can stand for a lot of things. But also, Ryan Coogler said one of the big core operating principles of the series was them trying to showcase what Doctor Doom is like, how he works, with a combination of magic and technology together. That's going to be the ultimate fusion. There are a couple teasers for that in episode 1. Part of the reason why Doctor Doom is such a big threat to the Avengers is because he takes all the best technology and all the best magic to combine them and make himself even more
But he
powerful
better go
than he could be with just
crazy.
being a man of technology like Iron
I'm
Man
talking
or a
about
man
all
of
the
magic like
Avengers
Doctor
attack at
Strange.
once.
So
And
when
he
we actually see
fucking
them baking in a lot of magic to Riri Williams'
explodes all of
suit
them or
in later
something.
episodes, that'll be a little bit
Backs
like the
them
way
out.
Doctor Doom will look when he actually shows up in the MCU. Some of the locals clown on her, calling her Iron Girl, Iron Ma, Iron Chick.
That was wild.
Nobody on the show has actually
Iron
called
Ma.
her Ironheart yet as of the end of episode 3. Even the little kid Landon makes fun of her, helps her get to her friend's house. Madeline is her mother. You probably recognize Cree Summer, though, from a billion other shows and movies, but she's mostly known recently for her voiceover work more than anything else. On the show, she's playing Miss Stanton. I think it's meant to be a reference to Zelma Stanton, who I think is her daughter. She says that she wants Riri to meet. Like, come to my shop, meet my daughter. Zelma Stanton is actually from the Doctor Strange comics and knows magic, becomes his apprentice during the
Another
Strange
person
Academy
that knows
comics.
magic.
I think she's eventually going to be the one to bake a lot of that magical spells into Riri Williams' armor suit. Xavier here seems like he's meant to be her childhood love interest, or like her love interest in present day that she knew as a child. Basically, Natalie's brother. He makes her the mixtape, and that's basically code for please be my girlfriend. He makes a bunch of Iron Man armor suit references. She claims she wants to build a better armor suit than Iron Man and a better AI
I don't
than
know about
Friday or
that.
Jarvis.
I
Very
don't think no one will ever be
self-aggrandizing.
better than
They
Iron Man.
reference her father who died. He
And
seems like he was a
Jarvis, the
locally famous
original.
mechanic that everybody loved. They also revealed that her father was the actual Tony Stark Stan, the Iron Man Stan, and that was actually what set her on the path to becoming the Ironheart character.
The real fan was Gary.
When your business is on the path to AI, Dell AI Factory or NVIDIA can quickly implement the AI you need. Help keep
As opposed to her being the Iron Man fangirl when she was a little kid. These are all meant to be minor changes from Riri Williams' comic book origin, where Tony Stark is way more present as an actual AI. They basically replaced that with
But
the
that would've
Natalie
been
AI
crazy
in the
if
show.
she
But
made an
eventually
Iron
in the
Man
comics,
AI.
she does make the Natalie AI. So like Natalie is from the comics
With
as well.
Tony.
It's just that Robert Downey Jr. probably didn't want to do a whole bunch of TV shows, so like, we're just going to skip over the whole Iron Man actual part where he shows up on the TV show. Also because they don't want to show him too much before he actually comes back as Doctor Doom. Like, they want
Yeah.
that to be the first thing you see when he comes back. There are a
better
bunch
that
of
way.
references to her father's Barracuda that was so precious to them when she was a child. Maybe they'll bring that back at the end of the series and
Yeah,
she'll
she
wind up
gotta have
getting
to
another
upgrade that.
Barracuda. Her childhood friend Jim, who owns the local part shop, references Tony Stark's fellowship at MIT again in Iron Man stuff, setting up the playful banter over money that she owes for all the parts and for the Hood's crew to swoop in and to pay for her stuff. He sets up her audition at Desperito's Pizza. Desperito
guessing
feels like
she
a
knew him.
Despero reference to the comics, who's another one of Marvel's Fear Lords with characters like Mephisto, Nightmare, other characters who basically gain their power from people's fears. Her audition then winds up being kind of a saw trap that she has to
Yeah, that
MacGyver
was
her
wild.
weight out of. Like, if you pass, that means you survived, so you get to join the crew, otherwise you're dead. When we see the Hood again, he's still wearing his red hood. Like, most of the time we see him, he's wearing his hood, but there are a couple points in later episodes where you actually see him out of the hood. Turns out she actually knows who Rampage is, another tech genius she's interacted with online in the past, and the Hood basically convinces her to come to the dark side and join his crew to get all the money. Then the episode
Shit,
where they're
money
playing
talk.
Xavier's mixtape, creating the Natalie AI using Iron Man's barf technology. This audio of Natalie she hears on the mixtape giving her all the PTSD flashbacks is actually on
That
the
was
mixtape.
wild.
Like, Xavier says, oh yeah, like I put her audio on the mixtape. There are a couple more flashbacks to the actual Barracuda, and then they show what happened with them dying in the actual drive-by shooting when she was younger. Then they start teasing what's going on with the actual Hood himself. They tease his upcoming marks and show off some of the scarring on his back. Like, whatever he's doing to obtain the magical power, the actual suit itself is corrupting his body. Sort of like the cost of magic. All the tattoos that John
You're
are
gonna
putting
die.
on his back are to hide the growing scars. Each time he uses the cloak, the scars actually grow bigger. You also notice the lyrics of the song mentioning the devil edited against the scenes of the
Yeah, that
hood
was wild.
really want you to think that it is going to be Mephisto because he's kind of Marvel's version of the devil. We will see if that's just a red herring and it winds up being Dormammu.
I
But
don't
like,
think
there
they're
are a
gonna
couple
use
moments
him,
like
bro.
this in the next couple of
I think they'll
episodes where
leave it
like
for
they
Wanda.
really want you to wonder if
A
it is
Wanda
Mephisto.
movie.
Do not be surprised if it is not though. Really do not like Marvel messing with us like this. The episode 2 title was Will the Real Natalie Please Stand Up, a reference to the Eminem song Will the Real Slim Shady Stand Up, and the Natalie
stand up.
AI,
You
which is meant to
stand
feel
up.
much more like an actual person than say like Jarvis or Friday, much more like the original Natalie because it's based on Riri Williams' brain scans of Natalie. They revealed the actual acronym Natalie stands for Neuro Autonomous Technical Assistant and Laboratory Intelligence Entity.
That's a
On
mouthful.
our screen, the car here is a 1971 Plymouth Cuda 440 six-pack. That's the one from Black Panther, Wakanda Forever that she had. When they make the joke about the Victorian-era ghost, it sounds like a bit about Agatha Harkness because she is now a ghost in the MCU. This time, their creative reveal of the Ironheart show title is on a street sign. Their next mark winds up being a billionaire
Already got
woman
a
creating
street named
tunneling
after her,
technology.
and she don't even
Sheila
know.
Zarate isn't meant to be a character from the comics either. Neither is the next mark that they go after. My assumption, though, and Natalie actually mentions this in later episodes, is that the Hood is robbing these specific technologies in service of helping his master, Dormammu or Mephisto or whoever it winds up actually being behind the cloak itself. Probably to help that entity break into the MCU dimension. They mention Slug, their hacker, is from Madripoor, first time they've referenced Madripoor in a hot minute. These blood siblings are a reference to the blood brothers from the Iron Man comics. In the comics,
Yeah,
they're
that's what they
aliens, though.
should have got.
These
Big
people are just regular
guys.
people. On her list here
Yeah.
of internet contacts, there's
I
actually a
don't
real
know,
big
bro.
real-life Easter egg. Ryan
Castings
Array
be
sounds like a
weird
Screen Crush
sometimes.
reference. I actually know Ryan in real life. He didn't mention anything about this, so this might just be some fun Easter egg that somebody working on the
that's
show
cool.
cooked up. But here's the thing, Joe McGillicuddy, which she correctly guesses is an alias, is actually Alden Ehrenreich's Zeke Stain character from the comics, who is very much a villain in the comics,
Oh
but
man,
we will see
he's
if
gonna
he's a red
turn.
herring on the show, and he actually does wind up being truthful, that he doesn't want to be anything
I
like
think they
his
should
father
leave him as
Obadiah
good.
Stane, and he actually is trying to help people and do good things. But that's why there's all these recent transactions for bioenhancements. That's about because Zeke Stane's Iron Man technology that he uses is vastly different from Tony Stark or Obadiah Stane's Ironmonger suits.
But he gonna
Some
get
of the
caught
other
up
names here on this
because
internet contact
Riri
list are just real life production crew
will
members at
probably
Marvel
say
that helped work on
what
the
happened.
series, like help make the actual show, or they make the Black Panther movies. Usually when they need
Is
a
that
lot
Robert
of background
Lewandowski?
names for episodes, or they make the Black Panther movies. Usually
Yeah,
when
what
they
the
need a
hell? Why
lot
they
of
got Robert
background names, make the
Lewandowski on
actual
there?
show, or they make the
The hell?
Black Panther
You
movies.
a fan of
Usually when
him?
they need a lot of background names for episodes for any kind of show in general, they'll just pick random people from the crew. You notice when she goes to get the little kid's wagon, there's an Easter egg for the Stark Expo on the shop from Iron Man 2. She also meets Ezekiel Stane then, who's living in a nearby neighborhood. They said the whole twist with him getting revenge on his neighbor because her dog won't stop pooping on his lawn. But
Nah,
because
that's
they were
the worst
playing up
neighbor,
him
bro.
being a klutz so much, it just feels kind of like an act. Like, is he just pretending to be this much of a bumbling idiot?
That shit will
Just
make you
really,
crash
really
out.
waiting for the rug pull at some point. He makes an Orange is the New Black reference from the Netflix show. He takes her then to his secret underground lab. Menacing iron suit feels like an Ironmonger Obadiah Stane reference. He makes a literal reference to that in later episodes. Apparently, they are both big Alanis Morissette fans, setting up the song over the end credits. They play the same song they're singing here over the end credits. The Natalie AI then breaks out of her laptop through the internet and starts talking with her mother. Wasn't a big fan
That
of
was funny,
this scene,
bro.
but you kind of get the idea. Like, they're basically just getting to the point where everybody is cool with the Natalie AI. Like, all the different people in her life are meeting the AI.
I'm surprised
Riri
they
then
liked it. I
references
would have thought it
Zeke
was
Stane
kind of
planning
weird.
a global takeover. That doesn't feel too far off from the mark, but more of a comic book reference
know.
to that version of Ezekiel Stane. The version on the show, this MCU version, could be completely different. All the numbered lockers also seem like a callback to Iron Man's armor suits, like his Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, Mark 4, and so on, in Tony Stark's lab in his own basement. all the talk about bionics that he goes on, basically his approach to Iron Man armor suits, like what if we could actually bake it into our bodies? He basically wants to turn himself and other people into armor suits themselves.
That would
So it's
be
actually not
wild.
too dissimilar from what was happening with the extremists during Iron Man 3. He mentions his dad for the first time without saying literally Obadiah Stane,
He's
but he
probably
talks
gonna
about organ
experiment
replacements, medical
on
technology,
himself
helping people. So I
and
think the
go
idea is
crazy.
that he's trying to be good, unlike his father. There's a couple references here to him holding this device that looks a lot like Tony Stark's
That's what I
original
thought
arc
too.
reactor. It's not an arc reactor, but they do reference arc reactors. Like Riri Williams says, no, my armor suit is powered by solar power because arc reactors are really expensive and really rare. But this whole moment of him holding it feels like a reference to Obadiah Stane when he pulled it out of Tony Stark's chest.
This is your legacy.
They pull their next heist job. Natalie hacks into her armor suit mid-heist, not sure why she's so afraid of the rest of the crew learning about the Natalie AI, but then winds up helping her complete the heist after losing the virus. This little moment of the suit's hand actually
That's
working on
pretty
its own
wild,
remotely is a
but
Cousin It reference to the Addams Family in Wednesday on Netflix.
pretty
Then
cool.
the Hood shows off some of his powers
Something
and
different.
abilities that he's been hiding in the car the whole time, literally cloaked from view, and that's what they meant by him holding his breath all night long. In the comics, the way the cloak's powers work is that the Hood will keep him invisible as long as he's holding his breath. He extorts her into giving them part of control of the company and continued payments, basically a lot of money. Then they show off some of his
Bro,
other
that was
abilities,
wild.
like the magical bullets that he curves off of her armor
Imagine
suit to disable the guard. Notice the red magical energy seems like
he
Dormammu
curved
coded
that
or
thing.
Mephisto coded potentially. It's just meant to be red energy making you think of Doctor Strange related things. They reference that maybe he stole it from a demon. That's meant to be a reference to how he got the cloak in the comics originally. He shot a demon, then literally just took it off of him. Her standing in front of the Faust posters later also feels like another Mephisto reference too, because Mephisto is based a lot on the original Faust character. She mentions aliens, that's
Maybe
a
we
reference to a
actually get
bunch
him
of
after
different
all.
types of characters in the MCU, like
I don't
Thor,
think
the
we'll see him
Asgardians,
though.
Skrulls, Thanos, the Chitauri, Wizards is a Doctor Strange reference, Androids is a Vision reference. She mentions Timeline, which feels like a Loki reference. And she mentions Spy Kids.
Oh my
There have been a lot of
gosh,
jokes
Spy
about that
Kids,
too. Like
bro.
people make fun of things with bad special effects to looking kind of like Spy Kids. Like this looks a lot like Spy Kids. Xavier then makes a Star Wars reference, also because Disney owns Star Wars and Marvel at the same time, so like they're not infringing on anybody's copyright by canonizing that to the MCU. And they did that way back during Captain America Civil War as well with
Ain't no
Spider-Man.
problem
Hey, do you
with it.
remember seeing that old movie Empire Strikes Back? The Padawan references, though, specifically feel like a reference to the prequels, so maybe they're edging closer to making the Mace Windu jokes. Like, why does Nick Fury look so much like Mace
Bruh,
Windu?
that would be funny.
He starts talking a lot about Natalie, but she doesn't tell him about the Natalie AI. This also happens in later episodes too, so it just makes it feel like eventually everybody in her life, like all the different characters,
know.
will
I
learn
think
about
he's
the
gonna
Natalie
feel some
AI
type of
and
way
make friends with it.
when he
Then you
finds
notice
out
the Hood starts
about the
hearing the
AI.
voices of, could be Dormammu, could be Mephisto's voices whispering in the background asking what he desires most, and because of his use of the Hood, his magical scars grow larger, covering his body. When he mentions the he who did something to him, the cost that he has to
Hey,
pay, the price
yo,
he
that
has
was
to pay,
wild,
it's
bro.
probably whoever is behind the actual cloak itself. They end the episode with Zeke Stane throwing out the peaceful message signs and stepping in dog poop and cutting the flowers of the neighbors to
He
get
finally
revenge.
had
Him
enough.
taking one in his mouth makes it feel like he'll use his bionics to make some weapon from it or for some larger revenge purposes. But like I said, they end the
Hey, go
episode with
for
that
it.
same Alanis Morissette song they were singing in the car. The episode 3 title was We Endanger Girl, which is a reference to her and the
I thought
Hood's crew
he
turning on
found
each
her
other
right there.
in the heist that goes wrong at the end of the episode. They start the episode just enjoying the money that they're earning, using it
Yeah,
for the creative
sneeze.
title for the show with the cash. Clown puts on the Hood's hood, feels very transgressive. They mention analyzing it to learn more about its powers, setting up later in the episode. And they set up the group turning on itself, like conflict within the group. Their next target is
I thought it
Heirloom
was over with.
Biotechnology. Hunter Mason is not somebody from the comics, they just created him for the show. But it seems like for some reason, the Hood wants access to the seed technology.
We Ocean's 11 or The Sopranos?
Riri Williams mentions Ocean's 11 and Sopranos, asking if they're more like the Robin Hoods, stealing from the rich, helping the poor, or good characters fundamentally like the Ocean's 11 characters, or in the case of the Sopranos, if they're just doing this to obtain more power and money. He
A bit
implies
of
that
both.
he is trying to do something iconic and doesn't care that he has to do some super shady things to get there, but he doesn't say exactly what his ultimate goal actually is. My assumption is that we will learn that either in episode 4 or episode 5 when they
I'm
reveal who
surprised
is
he's not
actually
really
behind the
power
cloak
hungry.
itself.
I mean, he
think
is,
that's meant to be
but
an
like,
episode 5 reveal though. She
he
asks if his
treated
hood
the
works on
group
Pimtech or
good.
vibranium. He literally just comes right out and says that it's magic, but she doesn't want to believe that magic is real and thinks that there's a scientific explanation behind everything, which is the exact same thing that Tony Stark would say to say like Doctor Strange. Like, there's got to be some scientific explanation for how you use all these abilities. They kind of addressed this during the first Doctor Strange movie, where the Ancient One told him that they got the power for their magical spells by pulling energy from other dimensions. That was meant to be why different types of magic was color-coded differently. In the comics, it's a little more complicated, like magic is a real thing, completely different. There's no scientific explanation for it, and the different color coding just
I
denotes
wonder
where
where
the
we're gonna get
magical power is coming from. So it's why Loki's
Wanda's
magic is green,
kids
for instance, is more
in
illusion-based
Doomsday,
magic. Now he could
actually.
say time-based magic because he's God Loki. Zeke Stane then comes to her house, specifically mentions that he's 36 years old, just to give you an idea for the
Yeah, that would
timeline,
be
how old he
weird
was during
to
the events
just
of the
show
first
up
Iron Man
and
movie.
say that.
All the technology that he mentions here is stuff that it seems like he does to himself, like enhancing his muscle fibers, skeleton, skin, eyes, organs, everything. Just sort of setting that up for later, like, look what I did to my own body.
That was
Basically
wild.
making an unbreakable body for himself on par with, say, like Vision in his
That
vibranium
looked
body,
crazy.
which technically did actually get broken during Avengers Infinity War. Like, you think vibranium is meant to be unbreakable, but it just takes something with enough force, like now that we have adamantium in the MCU. Vibranium also weak to
So what's
the Infinity
stronger?
Gauntlet, which is supposed to be like the most
Vibranium
powerful
or
thing inside the
adamantium?
MCU, so of course. Natalie then correctly clocks that the Hood
That's what
is
I
probably
wanted to know.
heisting parts for something worse that he's not telling them about, and makes another Star Wars reference to the
The
Death
Death
Star.
Star.
Then it seems like she's going to eventually take over her
Shit, he
dad's
building
car
something.
garage and turn it into her new
Maybe.
lab at some point when she gets over her PTSD. The police then tell her that Rampage was killed. The show implies that the Hood either did it himself or had somebody do it to keep him quiet. She then plans to use Zeke Stane's bionic skin enhancements to help her learn more about the Hood's powers in his cloak. At his place while he's doing yoga, he's listening to the news broadcast mentioning all of their high-tech heists. When his friend seems like he tries to get him to cancel the heist because there's too much heat on him and they can't find dirt on the Hunter Mason billionaire, Parker, seeing the big picture, sounds like a Dormammu or Mephisto kind of reference. Like, that is the big picture. This
He
is
wanna
larger
back
reason
out of
for
it.
him to want all these different technologies. Probably do help whichever entity this is break into the MCU. Couple big WTF reveals here at Zeke Stane's house too. He reveals that he's got Obadiah Stane's ashes in a bag in his house. Feels
That's
like he's
crazy.
got some issues that he has not dealt with yet. She sees the name, figures out who it is, and he explains his full backstory. Also basically tells her the truth of how
Did
his
not
father
expect
died in
that.
the events of the first Iron Man movie. No, he tried to kill Tony Stark, that's what happened, and I don't want to be anything like him. We will see if this is a misdirect, but I did
Yeah, he
love
might
that I kind of
change.
laughed when I saw that his ashes were literally just sitting around his house. Jeff Bridges actually said that there was a deleted scene that they filmed at the end of the first Iron Man movie where Obadiah Stane was revealed to have actually survived that final crash, and at some point he would come back in some future Marvel movie, but it
Guess
sounds like they
not.
canceled those plans and decided to never bring him back, because we are literally seeing his ashes here. Like, you can't get deader than ashes. Zeke then literally mentions
not need him back.
Ironmonger, which was the name of his suit that he wore after stealing Tony Stark's arc reactor. Bad Marvel dads all over the MCU, everybody has daddy issues. If you're actually just looking at all the big characters, odds are much better that your dad was actually a terrible person or an outright villain than he was a good person. During the actual heist later, the mermaid reference feels like a callback to Namor and his people that debuted during Black
Mermaid.
Panther Wakanda Forever, along with Riri Williams debuting. When the
I need to
Hood
see
breaks
more
in,
of
Hunter
Namor,
reveals
too.
that he expected him and
Hopefully
tries
he's in
to pay him
Doomsday.
off with a small amount of money. The Hood won't take it. Kinda seems like his ego is actually what gets in the way of this and causes him to eventually kill Hunter. Riri Williams does wind up getting a piece of his cloak to eventually analyze though, but sets off the alarm system, locking them in, setting up the sequence of events where a whole bunch of people get killed. They say the title of the episode, We Endanger Girl. They said the name of the thing inside the thing. Then as the hood starts to kill Hunter, you actually hear whispers coming from his cloak, like whoever's
I don't
behind the
know. I
cloak is
didn't really.
basically influencing him, slowly taking over his mind. Also,
I
his
didn't really
eyes
like the
go
fight
black
scene.
for a minute. The rest of the guards rush in, and he uses his
I don't know.
magical bullets to take them out. Also has some hand-to-hand
I
fighting
think it could
skills
have been
too, so he's
better.
actually not just completely relying on the magic itself. John then catches Riri Williams with pieces of the hood's cloak, making it sound
But
like he didn't know
it's like, bro, why
Rampage
didn't you
was
put it
killed,
away?
making it sound like the hood did it himself. And then Natalie saves her with the suit, locking John in and killing him. By the end of the episode, though, we actually see the hood communicating with whoever power is behind the actual cloak, Dormammu or Mephisto, whoever actually winds up being, and it shows him a vision of John dying and Riri Williams in the Ironheart suit. All setting up the idea that he's going to spend the rest of the
snitched.
series trying to revenge kill her. So we will see if Zeke Stain winds up being a surprise secret villain during the series and succumbing, eventually basically turning into another version of his father like he doesn't want
I
to
think
become.
it's too
or
soon
if
for
that's a
that.
red herring and he does wind up ultimately being a good person and helping Riri Williams stop the hood. But biggest question, everybody let me know in the comments, do you think it's actually going to wind up being Mephisto for real, or do you think it's going to
Nah.
wind up being Dormammu behind the actual hood itself? Just because Marvel's official list for the stuff that you should watch to understand Ironheart included the Doctor Strange movies, so that just feels like a Dormammu reference.
That's probably what it
Also,
is.
because they're putting Riri Williams on their Young Avengers team, the Champions, as they're probably going to call it, I'm expecting some kind of post-credit scene for that in the last
Hopefully.
episode. So we will see what they do with Young Avengers Champions stuff. But like I said, all the rest of the episodes will release next
But that was it for today. Thanks for watching. Bye.